Today's demonstration came after the brutal killing and mutilation of a 25-year-old woman. The killing sparked outrage and prompted calls for a change in the country's law after several media outlets published a leaked photograph of the victim's disfigured body on their front pages.
¿Cómo fue que la mataste?
Con ese mismo cuchillo que me golpeó, se lo enterré por el cuello.
The National Palace was one of the targets of the crowds. They said the government hasn't done enough to address the issue of violence against women. It's estimated that 10 women are killed in Mexico every day.
In the dark and violent world of organized crime, women are often the most vulnerable victims. Over the years, there has been a disturbing trend of cartels filming and sharing videos of women being tormented and butchered in the most gruesome way imaginable. These videos are not just acts of violence, they are also messages of terror, designed to warn anyone who dares to cross the cartels or challenge their power. So, in this video today, we will take a look at some of the women who were filmed while being butchered by cartels. Number 1. The Unknown Girl. She was only 6 years old when she was brutally harmed and killed in the most horrific way imaginable by a ruthless Mexican cartel leader, Marciano Milan Vasquez. Her name and face were never revealed to the public, but her story shocked the world in 2015 because she was just an innocent victim of a brutal drug war that claimed hundreds of lives in Mexico. On the day of her death, she was kidnapped along with her parents and a man who owed the cartel a large sum of money. They were taken to a remote location where they were all tied up and blindfolded before Vasquez grabbed the girl and began to inflict unspeakable pain on her. The man, who was the main target of the cartel, was forced to watch as the girl was butchered with an axe while she was still alive. Her parents were also made to witness the unspeakable horror as their daughter's screams echoed in their ears. An eyewitness who chose to remain anonymous for obvious reasons said that the cartel leader, Marciano Milan Vasquez, laughed maniacally as he removed her limbs and threw them into a burning barrel of acid. It was also said that while butchering her daughter, Vasquez told the girl's father that he was doing this so he would never forget him, and after he had killed the girl, Vasquez ordered the execution of her parents as well. Marciano Milan Vasquez was a notorious assassin and drug runner for the Los Zetas drug cartel, one of the most violent and powerful criminal organizations in Mexico.
A former member of the Zeta drug cartel said he witnessed 70 to 80 executions carried out by the Zetas in Mexico. Gustavo Rodriguez was testifying against Marciano Milan Vasquez, a man the government says was a major player in the cartel.
70? 80? No, I don't think those numbers account for even 10% of the number of people Vasquez killed. This guy was a ruthless killer who started as a low-level thug but quickly rose through the ranks of the cartel due to his brutality and viciousness. His reign of terror began in 2009 when he joined Los Zetas as a hitman, but soon became the regional manager of Piedras Negras, a city in Coahuila that was a hotbed of smuggling and violence. He controlled the flow of narcotics across the border and had the local authorities and politicians in his pocket. Vasquez was the devil who was feared by everyone and no one dared to cross him. This guy was responsible for countless murders, kidnappings, extortions, and every crime you could think of. Vasquez was involved in it. You see, Vasquez had a sadistic streak and enjoyed inflicting pain and suffering on his enemies and their families. He often made them watch as he killed their loved ones in front of them to make them feel the ultimate despair. Like in 2013 when Vasquez and his men broke into the home of a couple and their 6-year-old daughter. They tied them up and demanded information about a local politician who had refused to cooperate with Los Zetas. When the family denied any knowledge of the politician, Vasquez poured inflammable liquid on their daughter and forced her parents to watch her scream and writhe in agony as she died a painful death by fire. As if that wasn't enough, Vasquez and his men went ahead and made the couple face the same fate as their daughter. He wiped an entire family in one night. Vasquez was also responsible for the 2015 abduction and brutal killing of about 300 people in a remote Mexican village. Their only crime was that they refused to work for the cartel. It was shortly after this massacre that fate caught up with Vasquez as he was arrested on July 15, 2015 by the U.S. authorities in San Antonio, Texas. Following his arrest, he was faced with charges bordering on murder, conspiracy, illegal substance trafficking, money laundering, racketeering, among others. Although he pleaded not guilty, the evidence against him was just overwhelming, and the judge convicted him on all counts and sentenced him to 7 life sentences plus 30 years.
The 4-year-old Marciano Milan Vasquez was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences today in federal court. The member of the Los Zetas drug cartel was convicted on a number of counts, including murder, conspiracy, and drug charges.
Number 2. La Flaca. Jocelyn Alejandra Niño was born in the 1990s in Mexico. Although not much is known about her early life, she was suspected to be a member of the Cartel de las Flacas, a group of female assassins who worked for the Gulf Cartel, one of the most powerful and violent criminal organizations in Mexico. The Gulf Cartel operates mainly in the northeastern state of Tamaulipas, where they are involved in illegal substance trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, murder, and several other gruesome crimes. The cartel is divided into several factions, such as Los Metros and Los Ciclones, who often fight each other for control of the territory and the lucrative smuggling routes to the United States. Niño, who went by the alias La Flaca, which means the skinny one, was reportedly a member of Los Ciclones and was based in the city of Rio Bravo, near the border with Texas. As a foot soldier, she was responsible for fighting off cells of Los Metros, the rival faction of Los Ciclones. She was also known for her slim body and girly looks, which she used to disguise herself from her enemies and the authorities. Women like Niño sometimes start their criminal careers as lookouts, before they climb their way up to the ranks of hitmen, or hitwoman in this case. Niño gained notoriety on social media on January 5, 2015, when an anonymous user leaked a picture of her to Valor por Tamaulipas, a citizen journalist page that posts security updates and organized crime leaks. Her picture also made it to Facebook and Twitter, where she was identified as a Gulf Cartel hitwoman. In that picture, she was seen smiling in front of the camera and posing with a firearm while wearing a bulletproof vest. She was resting her sunglasses on her head and was wearing a gold necklace. The picture's background stirred commentary on the apparent low-income lifestyle of cartel-employed assassins, which seemed to contradict the notion that those working for organized crime groups in Mexico live luxuriously. In addition, others discussed in the comment section whether or not lifestyles like Niño's were worth the risk when organized crime bosses reportedly enjoy most of the luxuries. However, Niño's fame was short-lived, as she was found dead on April 13, 2015, just 3 months after her picture went viral. Her body was discovered by Mexican authorities in a parking lot in Matamoros, another city in Tamaulipas, but she was not alone. Along with her were 2 other bodies, one of a butchered female and another of a butchered male, who were also suspected to be members of Los Ciclones. The bodies were stuffed inside ice coolers and left in a pickup truck with a Texas license plate. It was easy to identify Niño by a distinctive tattoo on her forearm, displaying Niño, her surname. Her body had visible signs of torment, and her limbs were severed from her torso. A written message at the scene stated that she was killed by Los Metros as a warning to Los Ciclones. The brutal murder of Niño and her companions was part of a wave of violence that swept across Tamaulipas in 2015 as the Gulf Cartel factions intensified their turf war. According to official statistics from the National Institute of Statistics and Geography, INEGI, of Mexico, there were 980 homicides in the state that year, a 40% increase from the previous year. Many of the victims were young men and women who joined the cartels, either by choice or by force, and who paid the ultimate price for their involvement. Niño just happened to be one of them. However, she was not the only woman who used the alias La Flaca and faced a similar fate. In fact, there were at least 2 other women who identified as the skinny one before her. The first one was Veronica Mireya Moreno Carreon, an ex-police officer from the Mexican state of Nuevo León, who was working for Los Zetas, another infamous cartel, at the time of her arrest in September 2011. She was believed to have taken over the control of Los Zetas after the prior leader, Raul Garcia Rodriguez, was arrested in August of the same year. Carreon was, allegedly, the first known female boss of a major cartel. The second notorious Flaca, who used the alias, was Nancy Manriquez Quintanar. This one was also arrested in 2011 while working alongside Los Zetas. During her days in active service, she was said to have been responsible for the murder of at least 9 members of opposing cartels. Number 3. Ingrid Escamilla. Ingrid Escamilla was born in 1994 in the state of Puebla, Mexico. She was a bright and ambitious young woman who had a master's degree in tourism business administration. She moved to Mexico City to pursue her career and met Eric Francisco Robledo Rosas, a 46-year-old civil engineer who became her partner. They lived together in an apartment in the Vallejo neighborhood of Gustavo A. Madero in the north of the city. By 2020, the duo had been in a relationship for about 5 years, but it was not a happy one as Robledo Rosas had a history of domestic violence, and his ex-wife had filed a complaint against him for abusing her. He also had a drinking problem, which often led to arguments with Escamilla. On February 9, 2020, a Sunday night, one of those arguments turned deadly as Robledo Rosas went into a rage when Escamilla questioned him about his alcohol consumption.
Te digo que empezamos a discutir. Y seguimos discutiendo, nos empezamos a forcejear. Pues me dijo que quería matar, digo, pues mátame.
He brutally attacked her with a knife to her neck, ending her life.
Primero como que nos enterró y le digo, dale más fuerte de una vez.
He then proceeded to remove her head, her skin, and various organs, which he tried to flush down the toilet or throw away in a nearby drain. Now, I know this is probably not the first time you've heard of this level of cannibalism and savagery, but what makes this case worse is that Robledo made his son, who reportedly had autism, witness this gruesome scene. And once he was done butchering her, Robledo then called his ex-wife and confessed to what he had done. She immediately alerted the police, who arrived at the apartment and found Robledo Rosas with his body covered in red next to Escamilla's body. He was arrested and taken to the police patrol vehicle, where he calmly admitted to the crime and explained how he had tried to dispose of the evidence. His confession was recorded on video and later leaked to the media.
¿Y dónde tiraste todas sus partes, sus piezas?
Le digo,
La carne que le quitaste.
le digo que al drenaje.
The murder of Ingrid Escamilla shocked the public opinion of Mexico, not only for the brutality and savagery of the act, but also for the way the authorities and the media handled the case. The police officers who responded to the scene took photos of Escamilla's body and shared them with their colleagues, who then sold them to media houses. The next day, the front pages of several newspapers showed graphic images of Escamilla's mutilated body, with sensationalist headlines such as "It was Cupid's fault" or "They skinned her like a fish." The images were also circulated on social media, where some people made jokes or memes about them. The lack of respect and dignity shown to Escamilla and her family outraged many people, especially women, who demanded justice and accountability from the authorities and the media. They also denounced the widespread problem of femicide in Mexico, which is the killing of women because of their gender. According to official figures, more than 700 women were killed in Mexico in 2019, and only a fraction of those cases were investigated and prosecuted as femicides.
Las pintas, seguramente va a haber gente que diga,
I'm sure people will say, look at these crazy women spray painting this historic door from the revolution, but what they should do is read what we've written. How many women have been killed? How many are being discriminated? That's what really matters.
Many activists say the actual number of femicides is much higher, and that the government is not doing enough to prevent and punish them. So thousands of women across the country hit the streets in protests and demonstrations, demanding an end to the violence and impunity they face every day.
Today's demonstration came after the brutal killing and mutilation of a 25-year-old woman. The killing sparked outrage and prompted calls for a change in the country's law after several media outlets published a leaked photograph of the victim's disfigured body on their front pages.
To register their displeasure about the epileptic government's response to the cases of violence against women, some of the protesters inscribed their messages on the walls of the presidential palace and the attorney general's office.
The National Palace was one of the targets of the crowds. They said the government hasn't done enough to address the issue of violence against women. It's estimated 10 women are killed in Mexico every day.
For the most part, the protests were peaceful, but there were some clashes with the police, who used tear gas and pepper spray to disperse the crowds. However, some protesters also vandalized public property and set fire to vehicles and buildings. The newspapers that published Escamilla's inappropriate photos were the most hit as the protesters stormed their offices and set their vans ablaze.
I'm asking the members of the press, before you publish a photograph, before you write a story, think that this could have been your sister, that this could have been your daughter, that this could have been your mother.
Following Escamilla's death, Robledo was charged with her murder, and after court proceedings that spanned over 2 years, he was found guilty and sentenced to 70 years in prison.
En segunda instancia, confirmara la sentencia condenatoria de 70 años de prisión, los dictámenes periciales realizados por expertos.
Number 4. Gabriela Lima Santana. Gabriela Lima Santana was a resident of Capão da Canoa, a coastal town in southern Brazil. Her family reported her missing on March 13, 2021, but it was believed that she disappeared much earlier, possibly in late February. According to some reports, Gabriela was involved with a local gang and had a distinctive tattoo on her arm that was associated with them. This may have been the reason why she was targeted by a rival gang who wanted to send a message to their enemies. However, a few days after she was reported missing, the police received a shocking video that showed a woman being butchered by a smiling killer inside a bathroom. The video was recorded by another man, who also participated in the gruesome act. The woman in the video was later identified as Gabriela Lima Santana. The police traced the video to an apartment in the Rio Branco neighborhood, which was linked to a criminal gang. There, they arrested a 49-year-old man who was seen seen in the video butchering Gabriela, and a 23-year-old man who filmed the murder. They also identified 2 other suspects who are still on the run. The police believe that the murder was a retaliation against a rival gang and that Gabriela was lured to the apartment by one of the killers who pretended to be her friend. Things took a gruesome turn on March 24, 2021, when a group of municipal workers were operating an excavator to remove garbage from a drainage ditch in Capão da Canoa when they came across a suitcase that caught their attention. As they tried to lift the suitcase with the machine, one of Gabriela's arms fell out and landed in the water, where it floated to the surface. The workers were horrified by the sight and called the police immediately. As the officers arrived, they opened the suitcase, and inside they found the rest of Gabriela's body parts carefully packed in the suitcase. Inside the suitcase were also 2 kitchen knives and a saw, which were believed to have been used by the perpetrators to butcher her. As it appeared, the assailants didn't want her body to be recovered, as the suitcase also contained stones that were placed so the bag would sink. The case of Gabriela Lima Santana shocked the entire country and sparked outrage and protests against the violence and impunity of the gangs. The authorities vowed to bring justice to Gabriela and her family and to crack down on the gang activity in the region. However, while the 2 suspects who were arrested confessed to their involvement in the crime and are facing charges of murder, torment, and concealment of a corpse, the 2 other suspects are still being hunted by the authorities. Number 5. Lera Loca. Lera Loca was born in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, a coastal city known for tourism and drug trade. She grew up in a family of narco-traffickers and was exposed to the narco culture from a young age. She had a dream of becoming the queen of a carnival in Mazatlan, but she abandoned it after her brothers were wanted by the United States and the Mexican government for their involvement in the drug business. She then joined the Gulf Cartel, where she started as a lookout or halcon, and gradually rose the ranks to become a commander or comandante. She was in charge of a group of hitmen or sicarios who carried out assassinations, kidnappings, extortions, and other crimes for the cartel. She was also known for her beauty and charisma, which earned her the nickname of Lera Loca, or the Crazy Blonde. Lera Loca was not only a leader, but also a killer. She was notorious for her brutality and sadism, especially when it came to dealing with the rivals of the Gulf Cartel, the Los Zetas. The Los Zetas were a paramilitary group that split from the Gulf Cartel in 2010 after a dispute over leadership and territory. The 2 groups engaged in a bloody war that claimed thousands of lives and terrorized the Mexican population. Be one of the most ruthless and fearless fighters in this war, and she participated in several massacres, torments, and executions of Zetas members. She was also responsible for training other sicarios, especially women, in the art of killing. One of the most infamous acts of Lera Loca was captured on video and uploaded on the internet in 2011. The video showed her using a machete to remove the head of a man whose legs and hands were bound with duct tape. The man was allegedly a Zetas member who had been kidnapped by the Gulf Cartel. Lera Loca showed no mercy or emotion as she continued to remove his head, while the man encouraged her and praised her skills. The video ended with a message from the Gulf Cartel, warning the Los Zetas that they would suffer the same fate. That gruesome video was widely circulated on the internet and caused shock and horror among the viewers. It was also a propaganda tool for the Gulf Cartel, who wanted to show their strength and dominance over the Los Zetas. The video also revealed the role and the power of women in the Mexican drug cartels, who were not only victims but also perpetrators of violence. From then on, Lera Loca became a symbol of the female sicarias, who were willing to kill and die for their bosses and their cause. However, Lera Loca's reign of terror did not last long because, in July 2014, fate came knocking on her door as she was captured by the Los Zetas, along with 3 other women who were also members of the Gulf Cartel. They were held at gunpoint and had their heads removed by the Zetas, who filmed the execution and uploaded it on the internet as well. The video showed the women kneeling on the ground as a masked man interrogated them and accused them of working for the Gulf Cartel. The women admitted their affiliation and their crimes and begged for mercy, but the hitmen paid no attention to their pleas as they proceeded to remove their heads with a knife, one by one. Lera Loca was the last one to be killed, but she did not make a noise or move as the man removed her head and butchered her. The video ended with a message from the Los Zetas, claiming that they had avenged their fallen comrades and that they would continue to fight the Gulf Cartel. This gruesome video was also widely circulated on the internet and caused outrage and disgust among the viewers. It was also a propaganda tool for the Los Zetas, who wanted to show their revenge and superiority over the Gulf Cartel. That video also revealed the fate and the vulnerability of women in the Mexican drug cartels, who were not only killers but also targets of violence. Lera Loca became a symbol of the female sicarias, who lived and died by the sword. Do you think any of these women deserve what they got, and who among them do you think suffered the most at the hands of their killers? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe.